Hi, it's Colin Coward. I started The Volume to bring you some of the most authentic voices in sports. While you're here, make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks.
My first take was kind of a win-win. And I think most people in business will tell you, whenever you do a deal, and anyone who's done a deal, ideally, it's a win for both sides. When you are always the guy on one side of the deal, someone's getting screwed, it's usually not going to go that well. Now, with coaching, unlike a trade or, a business acquisition, it's a little bit different. Part of why you take a job like this, because I would argue, listen, I thought he could have been a head coach. Most of us did when he was fired by Miami. Even though I said I understood why Miami would fire him. You would never in a million years would be able to look past winning those last couple games in 2019, given the two quarterbacks it produced that we missed out on. One, Joe Burrow, which we tanked all season for, and then we picked Tua over Herbert. Now, only internally those guys truly know. I've heard stories that Flores wanted Herbert. I've heard that's not true. I don't know what to believe. I don't know the guy. But I do know that Flores is a fantastic defensive coach. But here was a simple reality, that regardless of the lawsuit, that every single person I know in the NFL, assistant coaches and personnel people, all told me the exact same thing. And this has been widely reported. He did not treat people well in Miami. His reputation in Miami as a person, like all the Belichick guys, they're not very good with people. The difference with Flores, which I always said, he could coach. Joe Judge couldn't coach. Right? Matt Patricia sucked. Mangini, I don't know what the hell was going on there. Definitely wasn't the man genius. Josh McDaniels, they ran out of Denver in a year and a half, couldn't coach. Brian Flores can coach defense. So the Steelers, who really care about defense, and organizationally, they aren't just one of the highest level organizations in pro sports, they're one of the model businesses in America, led by just one of the coolest cats also in America, and Mike Tomlin. Because someone sent me a text like, do you think he's trying to prove something or get a win? My personal take is Mike Tomlin's trying to get back to the playoffs and make runs. I know they made the playoffs this year, but it was a little lucky. He's trying to be better than what they've been. And Brian Flores is a really good coach on the open market. And the Rooney family is not necessarily worried about what the NFL thinks about them. Because did they have to go through the NFL with the lawsuit? I don't know. I don't quite understand the lawsuit. He also put the Houston Texans on there. How are the Houston Texans involved? They hired Lovie Smith. What does that have to do with you? Just because you knew Caserio? But I'm not a legal analyst. I can just speak on from a football perspective. Brian Flores, at minimum, should be a defensive coordinator in this league. Now, clearly the lawsuit played a part in that. So the Steelers, they didn't have a defensive coordinator opening. They were aggressive, and they were smart to hire him. I also think it's a very, very smart move for Brian Flores to take and accept this job. Because let's face it, he doesn't have to. Now, we'll see with the lawsuit. Is Stephen Ross going to pay him? I don't know. So maybe the money is not going to keep coming in. He's going to have to fight it in court. It's going to be a pain in the ass. But here's the thing. His reputation in Miami wasn't very good. Because all these Belichick guys know is Bill Belichick. And what did Patricia and Joe Judge do? They went running back to Bill Belichick. What did ultimately Josh McDaniels do? Went running back to Bill Belichick. I give Brian Flores a lot of credit for going somewhere else. Now, you could argue, would Bill Belichick have been an option? Probably not. He put his text message. It was like the opening thing in the lawsuit was that Bill texted him about Brian Daboll, and it turns out that he was texting the wrong Brian. So that relationship, based on Bill's history, when you cross him, is probably over. So he didn't have the option to go back, wasn't there. But if he was asking me, should I go back to the Patriots? Should I go somewhere else? The first thing I'd tell him, go somewhere else. And could there be a better place to go than the Pittsburgh Steelers? A place whose coach is known for knowing how to get along with people, having great relationships with players, operating while it being somewhat old school when you think the Pittsburgh Steelers. They don't feel as miserable and as negative as the New England Patriots. And I'm not even trying to take a shot at the New England Patriots. They do it well because check out their history. But that's because Bill knows how to do it. All these other guys do not. So Brian Flores now gets to learn under Mike Tomlin, who is also a defensive guy, and gets to see from a different organization, you don't have to be a dick to everybody. You don't have to treat people like this. You can treat people well and still succeed. Ask Andy Reid. Ask Pete Carroll. Ask Sean McVay. It's not everyone has to be walking on eggshells 24/7, 365. So I can't speak to the lawsuit. If he's going to go through with that, hell, it could get thrown out in court. I'm no lawyer. I've watched enough CSI shows to think unless he has actual hard evidence, which he claims he does on the Stephen Ross thing, though that has nothing to do with race. That just has to do with getting paid to tank, which, let's face it, was the right move. Was the right move. I defended him for turning that down. He was making $6-7 million a year. 100,000 ain't getting it done. But tanking was the right move, especially to get the Joe Burrow. Look what he did to the Bengals. Super Bowl, no big deal. They didn't win it, but they got there. And they actually had a lead with 5 minutes left in the game. This could help just get his career. I don't think it's inconceivable that he's a head coach in 2 years. Let me say that I think Bill Belichick is the best coach in the history of the league. I think he's the best coach I've ever seen any sport. I think he is elite. But I do think, and I'm not an ageist. I've said before, I don't care that McVay and Shanahan were young. They had unique experience. I don't care, when Bruce Arians and Mike Zimmer were hired in their 60s, it was clear that they had been overlooked for years. We can get age wrong on both sides. But I do think when you hit a certain age, even in coaching, and in coaching you're lucky because you're around young people, I think it naturally keeps you young. I'm 37 years old. I haven't had kids yet. I haven't met the person I'm going to have kids with yet. So, there's a decent chance that my first kid pops out at 40, 41, 42 years old. So, potentially in my 50s, I'll have a teenager, which I'm already okay with. They'll keep me young. I need that youth, that exuberance every day. I'm hopefully make enough money if I need to get an au pair or whatever, because I like doing my own thing. I'm not going to be a Disneyland dad or anything, but, I'm going to spend a lot of time in my 50s around children. Definitely probably teens, where some of my friends, by the time their kids are teenagers, they'll be in their early 40s. But I'm already thinking, as a podcaster and someone that talks for a living, it's going to give me good perspective. It'll keep me young, kind of like a coach. And I'm cool with it. I'm actually fine with it. It'll make me stay in shape, make me keep energy. I don't have a choice, But clearly Belichick gets a lot of shit for, he's 70 years old, but he understands young people. Clearly, he just won 10 games in the NFL. But he does kind of have a weak spot now. Is forever, he was able to kind of recreate these star coaches. He had his initial crew that he brought with him to Cleveland. He had spotted all these guys, right? Nick Saban, Pat Hill, Kirk Ferentz, Eric Mangini, Scott Pioli. He had a crew of guys that then he parlayed when he first got to New England and added the Dayballs, the Josh McDaniels, added Flores, Patricia, and all these guys. And he had reinforcements. So when his crew left, Mangini, Weiss, and Romeo, he had guys waiting in the wings, right? Josh McDaniels. Obviously, he reloaded with Bill O'Brien. Brian Daboll was an up-and-comer for him. Then Brian Flores and Matt Patricia. He had dudes. Caserio when Pioli left. I think he's run out. And I think it's a little bit of a problem. And I also think it reflects the guys that are coming back. Ultimately, Joe Judge just had to run back to Bill Belichick to go coach quarterbacks. That's not ideal. Now, you could argue, because I've said before, Joe, you need to learn how to call offense. And who's going to let Joe Judge potentially call offense? Nobody beside Bill Belichick. But did nobody else want Joe Judge? Did Joe Judge not have any other options? Did he have to go back to Bill Belichick? Even Josh McDaniels, when he was ultimately fired by the Denver Broncos, went to St. Louis before he came back to New England. Matt Patricia was unhireable. Nobody would touch Matt Patricia with a 10-foot pole. They had to go back to Bill Belichick. That's not ideal. Even Josh, Josh has really only had success with Bill. So it does feel a little bit like Bill didn't have this next crew of guys coming up, which is, again, somewhat understandable. It would be hard to have dude after dude after dude. Eventually, like the draft, you're going to miss on some young coaches. You're going to miss on some young personnel people. And people just leave you in the NFL. And some people left Bill and never had to come back. Jason Light never had to come back. Hell, even Bill O'Brien, got a head job and then he went to Nick Saban. Did not have to come back. Caserio, we'll see, but, who knows? Some of these guys do not have to go back. And, it's when I see that Joe Judge is going back, I know Joe Judge has to go back because he's desperate. No one else will touch him. Matt Patricia had to transition into be his next Ernie Adams. Like, I just wonder if Bill, who still, at this point, is elite at his job, that performance he had against Sean McDermott and Josh Allen in Buffalo on Monday Night Football is one of the highlights of the schematic X's and O's NFL 2022 season. But I'm starting to wonder, is he losing his fastball with the people around him? And it's just as simple as, Tom's not there anymore. Are the best and the brightest want to hitch their wagon to someone that is just miserable 24/7, who's also 70 years old? What if I was a 25-year-old and I was some up-and-coming offensive guy and I just wanted to break in the NFL? Would I call Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay before I call Bill Belichick? I might. Maybe his John Carroll connection has just kind of run out. Because it does feel like the Belichick train of coaching and just quality people around him is running out of steam. And that, more than Tom Brady leaving him, might kind of be the end of the Patriot reign.